What happens when a beloved morning show host sits down for what should be a friendly chat, only to face an onslaught of shocking accusations and personal attacks that leave the entire studio speechless? It only took 37 seconds for one guest to turn a simple question into the most dramatic exit in talk show history. The Today Show studio was buzzing with its usual energy that morning. Crew members were adjusting cameras, the audience was settling into their seats, and Savannah Guthrie was reviewing her notes at the anchor desk. Everything seemed perfectly normal, routine even, but what was about to unfold would become one of the most talked about moments in morning television. Meghan Markle walked onto the set with an air of confidence that immediately caught everyone's attention. She took her seat across from Savannah, and the cameras started rolling. The interview began pleasantly enough, with Savannah offering a warm welcome and thanking her guest for taking the time to appear on the show. "Thank you so much for being here with us this morning," Savannah said with her characteristic warmth. "We're really excited to have this conversation with you." Meghan smiled, but something about it seemed tight, forced. "Well, I'm here," she replied, her tone already carrying an edge that made a few producers glance at each other nervously. Savannah, ever the professional, pressed forward with her first question. It was straightforward, the kind of opening question any interviewer would ask. "So, let's start with something our viewers are really curious about. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've been working on lately?" The response was unexpected. Meghan leaned back in her chair and let out a small laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You know, Savannah, I find it interesting that that's where you want to start. Not with how I'm doing as a person, not with anything meaningful, but with what I've been working on. As if my value is only in what I produce." The studio went quiet. Savannah's expression remained calm, though you could see a flicker of surprise cross her face. "Of course we care about how you're doing," she said smoothly. "I just thought our audience would love to hear about your current projects. But we can absolutely start anywhere you'd like." "Can we, though?" Meghan shot back. "Can we really talk about anything I want? Or is this interview already scripted with questions designed to put me in a box?" Savannah took a breath, maintaining her composure. "I can assure you, we simply want to have an honest conversation. There's no agenda here." "No agenda," Meghan repeated, her voice dripping with skepticism. "That's what they all say, isn't it? Right before they start asking invasive questions and twisting everything I say." The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This was not the pleasant morning chat they'd expected. Savannah, to her credit, remained poised. "I understand you might be feeling defensive, and that's completely valid if you've had difficult experiences with the media. But I'm here to listen and give you a platform to share your perspective." Meghan's eyes narrowed. "A platform? You're giving me a platform? How generous of you, Savannah. How incredibly magnanimous." "I didn't mean it that way," Savannah said gently. "I simply meant that this is your opportunity to speak directly to millions of people watching." "My opportunity," Meghan scoffed. "Do you hear yourself? You sit there in your comfortable chair, with your comfortable job, acting like you're doing me some kind of favor by letting me speak. The privilege is just radiating off you." Savannah's jaw tightened slightly, but her voice remained steady. "I apologize if my words came across as privileged. That certainly wasn't my intention. Why don't we take a step back? What would you like to talk about?" "What would I like to talk about?" Meghan's voice was rising now. "How about we talk about how people like you have made a career out of tearing people like me down? How about we discuss the double standards, the constant scrutiny, the impossible expectations?" "Those are absolutely valid topics," Savannah responded, her patience remarkable. "And if you want to have that conversation, I'm right here, ready to listen." But Meghan wasn't listening anymore. She was on a roll, her voice getting louder, her gestures more animated. "You know what your problem is, Savannah. You sit there with your perfect hair and your perfect smile, asking your perfect little questions, and you think you're so neutral, so objective. But you're not. You're part of the machine. The producers were frantically signaling to each other now. This was spiraling out of control fast. Savannah remained remarkably calm, though her knuckles were white as she gripped her note card. I respect that you have strong feelings about the media, but I'm not your enemy here. Aren't you, though? Meghan challenged. Isn't that exactly what you are? Another person with a microphone who gets to decide how my story is told? Savannah took another measured breath. You're the one telling your story right now. I'm just here to facilitate that conversation. Facilitate, Meghan laughed bitterly. That's a nice word for control. You facilitate, you moderate, you guide. All just different words for the same thing. You're in charge, and I'm supposed to play along like a good little guest. The audience was completely silent now, watching this train wreck unfold in real time. Savannah set down her note card and looked directly at her guest. I'm genuinely trying to understand where this is coming from. Have I said something specific that's upset you? Because if I have, I'd like to address it. Oh, you'd like to address it, Meghan mocked. How professional of you. How very journalist of you. Always looking for the story, the angle, the soundbite you can use later. Savannah's patience was being tested, but she held firm. I'm looking to have a respectful conversation. That's all. Respectful, Meghan spat the word out. You want to talk about respect? Let's talk about how I've been treated by people exactly like you. People who smile to my face and then write horrible things about me. People who pretend to care, but are really just looking for ammunition. I understand you've been hurt, Savannah said, her voice softer now. And I'm sorry for whatever you've been through. But taking that anger out on me when I'm trying to give you space to share your truth isn't fair. That word, fair, seemed to trigger something in Meghan. Fair? You want to talk to me about what's fair? Do you have any idea what fair actually looks like? Because from where I'm sitting, fair would be not having to justify my existence to people like you every single day. I'm not asking you to justify your existence, Savannah replied firmly. I asked you about your projects. That was it. One simple question. Nothing is simple with people like you, Meghan shot back. Every question has a subtext. Every word has a hidden meaning. You're all the same. Savannah's expression hardened slightly. I'm sorry you feel that way, but lumping me in with everyone who's ever hurt you isn't accurate or fair to me either. Oh, now we're worried about what's fair to you. Meghan's voice was rising again. Poor Savannah, having to deal with a difficult guest. How terrible for you. The tension in the studio was thick enough to cut with a knife. Savannah glanced at her producers, then back at Meghan. I think maybe we need to take a break. Of course you do, Meghan said. Because when things get real, when someone actually pushes back, you want to cut to commercial. You want to regain control. No, Savannah said, her voice still calm, but with a hint of steel underneath. I want to take a break because this conversation has become hostile, and that's not productive for anyone. Hostile, Meghan repeated. I'm hostile because I'm not sitting here obediently answering your questions with a smile? Because I'm not performing for your cameras? Savannah put her hands flat on the desk. You're hostile because you've been attacking me personally for the last several minutes, instead of engaging in the conversation I invited you here to have. There it is, Meghan said triumphantly. There's the real Savannah, the one who doesn't like it when her guests don't behave exactly how she wants them to. That's not what I said, Savannah replied, frustration finally creeping into her voice. I'm trying to be patient and understanding, but you're making this incredibly difficult. I'm making this difficult? Meghan stood up now, her microphone pack making a loud thud against the chair. You invite me here. You ask me condescending questions. You talk down to me, and I'm the one making this difficult? Savannah remained seated, looking up at her guest with a mixture of concern and exasperation. I haven't talked down to you once. I've been nothing but respectful. Your definition of respect and mine are clearly very different, Meghan said, her hands on her hips. You think respect is just using polite words while you're actually judging everything I say and do. I'm not judging you, Savannah said, standing up now too. But I am trying to have a conversation, and you're not letting that happen. Maybe I don't want to have your kind of conversation, Meghan snapped. Maybe I'm tired of playing by your rules, in your studio, on your terms. Savannah's voice remained steady. Then why did you agree to come here? The question hung in the air for a moment. Meghan's face flushed. Because I thought, naively apparently, that maybe you would be different. That maybe you would actually listen, instead of just waiting for your turn to talk. I have been listening, Savannah said. I've been listening to you attack me for asking one simple question. I've been listening to you make assumptions about my character and my intentions. I've been listening to you project your anger about other people onto me. Don't you dare psychoanalyze me, Meghan warned, her finger pointing at Savannah. You don't know me. You don't know what I've been through. You're absolutely right, I don't, Savannah agreed, which is exactly why I asked you here today. So you could share that. So people could hear your side. But instead of taking that opportunity, you've spent this entire time being combative and accusatory. Meghan's eyes flashed. Maybe I'm combative because I have to be. Maybe I've learned that if I don't fight, I get walked all over by people exactly like you. I'm not trying to walk over you, Savannah said, her voice rising slightly. I'm trying to do my job, which is to have a conversation. A real, authentic conversation. But that requires both people to participate in good faith. Good faith, Meghan laughed harshly. That's rich coming from someone in your industry. When has the media ever operated in good faith when it comes to people like me? Savannah's patience was wearing thin. I can't speak for the entire media industry, but I can speak for myself and this show. We invited you here with genuine intentions. If you can't see that, or won't see that, then maybe this was a mistake. Oh, it was definitely a mistake, Meghan agreed. My mistake for thinking anything would be different. My mistake for believing that maybe, just maybe, someone in your position would actually care about the truth instead of the ratings. That accusation seemed to hit a nerve. Savannah's eyes hardened. That's unfair, and you know it. This has nothing to do with ratings and everything to do with trying to facilitate a meaningful conversation. But you can't have a meaningful conversation with someone who's determined to be antagonistic. I'm not being antagonistic, Meghan protested. I'm being real. I'm being honest. I'm not putting on a fake smile and pretending everything is wonderful when it's not. There's a difference between being honest and being cruel, Savannah said quietly. And right now, you're crossing that line. Meghan's mouth dropped open. Cruel? You think I'm being cruel? That's unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. You've personally attacked me multiple times, Savannah pointed out. You've made sweeping generalizations about my character based on your experiences with other people. You've refused to engage with any of my questions in good faith. What would you call that? I'd call it self-defense, Meghan said. I'd call it protecting myself from another interview designed to make me look bad. Savannah shook her head slowly. No one is making you look bad except yourself right now. I've given you every opportunity to turn this around, to actually have the conversation you claim you want to have. But you're so caught up in your anger and your assumptions that you can't see that. Don't you dare put this on me. Meghan's voice was shaking now. Don't you dare act like I'm the problem here. I'm not acting like anything, Savannah replied. I'm responding to what's actually happening right now, in this moment. And what's happening is that you came on this show with an agenda to be confrontational. And that's exactly what you've been. That's not true, Meghan insisted, though her voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Savannah asked. From the very first question, you've been defensive and hostile. You didn't come here to share your story. You came here looking for a fight. Meghan's face was red now. How dare you? How dare you suggest that I wanted this? I came here hoping for something better, and you've proven me right about all of you. All of who? Savannah asked, her voice sharp. All of what? You keep making these vague accusations without actually saying what you mean. The media, Meghan said, gesturing wildly. People, like you who pretend to be on our side, but are really just vultures looking for a story. I'm not a vulture, Savannah said firmly. I'm a journalist trying to do her job. And part of that job is calling out when a guest is being unreasonable, which is what's happening right now. Unreasonable, Meghan repeated, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Of course I'm unreasonable. That's always the word, isn't it? Whenever a woman stands up for herself, she's unreasonable. She's difficult. She's problematic. This isn't about gender, Savannah said. This is about behavior. And your behavior right now is unacceptable, regardless of who you are. That seemed to be the final straw. Meghan ripped off her microphone, the wire pulling free from the pack with a sharp crack. I'm done here. I'm done with this interview. I'm done with you. I'm done with all of this. Savannah didn't try to stop her. If that's your choice, then I respect it. But I want you to know that you're walking away from an opportunity that you asked for. I didn't ask for this, Meghan said, her voice breaking slightly. I would never ask to be treated this way. You're not being treated any way, Savannah said, her voice softening just slightly. You're being asked questions. That's what happens in an interview. That's what you agreed to when you came here. Meghan was already backing away from the chair. I agreed to a conversation, not an interrogation. It was never an interrogation, Savannah said, following her a few steps. It was supposed to be a dialogue, but dialogue requires two people willing to actually talk to each other, not at each other. Save your lectures for someone who cares, Meghan snapped, turning toward the exit. Savannah's voice carried across the studio. I'm not lecturing you. I'm trying to reach you, but you've built walls so high that nothing can get through. Meghan paused for just a moment, her hand on the studio door. For a second, it looked like she might turn around, might reconsider. But then her shoulders straightened, her chin lifted, and she pushed through the door without looking back. The studio was completely silent. Savannah stood there for a moment, her hands at her sides, her expression a mixture of frustration, confusion, and something that looked almost like sadness. The cameras were still rolling, capturing every moment of this unprecedented situation. Finally, Savannah turned back to the camera, her professional mask sliding back into place. She took a deep breath and walked back to her desk, sitting down with the kind of grace that comes from years of live television experience. Well, she said, her voice steady despite everything that had just happened. That was certainly unexpected. The audience let out a collective nervous laugh, the tension breaking just slightly. Savannah managed a small, tight smile. We invited our guest here today, hoping to have a meaningful conversation, she continued, choosing her words carefully. Unfortunately, that conversation took a turn that none of us anticipated. As you all just witnessed, sometimes interviews don't go the way anyone plans. She paused, gathering her thoughts. I want to be clear about something. My job as a journalist is to ask questions and listen to the answers. That's all I was trying to do here today. I have enormous respect for anyone who's willing to sit down and share their perspective, but that has to be a two-way street. The audience was hanging on every word now. Savannah's hands were folded on the desk in front of her, her posture perfect despite the chaos that had just unfolded. We always strive to create a safe, respectful environment for our guests, she went on, and I believe we did that today. What happened after that was beyond our control. Sometimes people carry pain and anger that has nothing to do with the present moment, and that's what we saw play out here. She took another breath. I hope that our former guest finds the peace she's clearly looking for. I genuinely do. But I also want our viewers to know that what you saw was exactly what happened. There was no editing, no manipulation, no hidden agenda. Just two people trying to have a conversation, and one of those people not being ready for it. A producer off camera gave her a signal. Savannah nodded slightly and looked back at the camera. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue with the rest of our show. Thank you all for your patience and understanding during this unusual situation. The cameras cut, and the studio erupted in a buzz of conversation. Crew members rushed over to Savannah, asking if she was okay, if she needed anything. She waved them off with a tired smile, assuring everyone that she was fine. But as she sat there, waiting for the commercial break to end, you could see the weight of what had just happened settling on her shoulders. This wasn't just a difficult interview. This was a moment that would be replayed, analyzed, and discussed for a long time to come. The stage manager started counting down for the return from commercial. Savannah straightened her papers, checked her appearance in the monitor, and prepared to move forward with the rest of the show. Because that's what professionals do. They handle the unexpected with grace. They maintain their composure under pressure. And they keep going no matter what happens. As the cameras came back on, Savannah's smile was back in place, warm and genuine. Whatever personal feelings she had about what had just occurred were pushed aside in favor of the job at hand. The show must go on, after all, and Savannah Guthrie was nothing if not a consummate professional. The remaining segments of the show proceeded without incident. Savannah interviewed her other guests with her usual charm and skill, asking thoughtful questions and listening attentively to the answers. To the casual viewer who might have tuned in late, you'd never know that anything unusual had happened earlier in the broadcast. But for those who had witnessed the entire exchange, the contrast was striking. Here was Savannah, demonstrating exactly how an interview should go when both parties are willing to engage respectfully. Her other guests responded to her questions thoughtfully, shared personal stories, laughed at appropriate moments, and created the kind of television that morning shows are built on. It was a masterclass in professionalism, and a stark reminder of what had gone wrong earlier. The difference wasn't in Savannah's approach. She had used the same warm, engaging style with every guest. The difference was in the guests themselves, and their willingness to participate in good faith. Throughout the rest of the show, Savannah never mentioned the earlier incident again. She didn't make excuses, didn't offer additional commentary, didn't try to explain or justify what had happened. She simply did her job with the same excellence she always brought to it. The studio audience, who had sat through the entire ordeal, seemed to appreciate this approach. They laughed at the jokes, applauded at the appropriate times, and engaged with the rest of the show as if the morning had started normally. But there was an undercurrent of solidarity in the room, a sense that everyone present had witnessed something extraordinary and had collectively decided to move past it together. As the show wound down and Savannah delivered her closing remarks, thanking the audience and previewing what was coming up next, there was a subtle but noticeable change in her demeanor. The smile was genuine, but there was something else there too. A weariness, perhaps, or a disappointment that someone she had invited into her space had chosen to use that platform for confrontation rather than conversation. When the final camera cut and the show wrapped, Savannah stood up from the desk and thanked her crew. She spoke briefly with her producers, discussed how they would handle any follow-up questions from the press, and then gathered her things to leave the studio. The woman who had stormed out earlier never returned. There was no apology, no attempt to smooth things over, no acknowledgement that perhaps things had gotten out of hand. The door she had walked through remained closed, a physical representation of the opportunity that had been squandered. For Savannah Guthrie, this was just another day in the unpredictable world of live television. She had handled the situation with remarkable poise, refusing to stoop to the level of personal attacks even when provoked. She had maintained her professionalism, protected the integrity of her show, and demonstrated why she was one of the most respected hosts in morning television. The contrast between the two women in that exchange couldn't have been clearer. One had remained calm, patient, and professional throughout, repeatedly offering opportunities for meaningful dialogue. The other had come in defensive, escalated every interaction, and ultimately walked away rather than engage authentically. One had exemplified grace under pressure. The other had proven that sometimes the biggest obstacle to having your voice heard is your own inability to use it constructively. As the studio lights dimmed and the crew began breaking down the set for the day, the morning's events settled into place as a cautionary tale about communication, respect, and the importance of approaching every interaction with genuine intention. It was a reminder that being given a platform is a privilege, and what you choose to do with that platform says everything about who you are.